Okay, in this tutorial we're going to look at creating this call out, and we will look at a method for tracking it onto your subject. Okay, as usual we're going to be primarily working in Fusion, so we're going to need our Fusion comp. So come to the top of the screen where you've got your effects library, make sure that's turned on, come to effects, and Fusion comp is at the top. You notice I've got a little star on mine, and that's because I keep it in my favorites bar at the bottom, so I don't need to go hunting for it. So bring your Fusion comp onto your timeline. I believe I'm working at 24 frames a second, yeah. And I'm going to change the duration of this to 4 seconds. The reason being I want to make it stretchable, and I've found that Resolve is quite good at stretching things longer, but gets a bit funky if you try and stretch them shorter. So I try and make the comp as short as I can. Okay, into Fusion. So we're going to make the call out. So you've got 3 basic elements to the call out. You've got the dot, whatever dot you want. You've got the line, and then you've got your text. So for this particular dot, I'm going to go a bit funky and use shapes rather than polygons. So I want a rectangle, a shaped rectangle, which will actually be a square. So shift spacebar and press SR, and you get shape rectangle. Add that in. Now any shape system needs a shape render, so press shift space again, SR, and you've got shape render. And I'm also going to add another shape rectangle, so click away, shift space bar, SR again, and shape rectangle. And I'm going to take the output of this shape rectangle and drop it onto the output of the first one, and that makes a shape merge, which you can't view the merge directly, you need to view it via the render. At the minute we've got 2 squares. So the first shape rectangle, I'm going to come over to the inspector, I'm going to right click on height, select expression, and then just drag a line from this plus sign to width. That keeps the shape's width and height the same. And I'm going to drop this to about 0.02, like so. Now you can't see it, but it's there. And I'm going to change the angle to 45 degrees. Now with shape rectangle 2, I'm going to come back to the inspector, I'm going to uncheck solid. I'm going to add a very thin border, that's way too big at the minute, but we'll change it. I'm going to do the same with the height. And I'm going to drop this to 0.03. And I'm going to again rotate it to 45 degrees. Like so. Now if we press and hold the command key and scroll your middle mouse button in the viewer, you can zoom in like so. What we're going to do is we're going to drop this line so that it's much thinner, so you get this kind of effect, like so. So that's your dot. Next we're going to do the line. For that I'm going to bring in a background node, and I'm going to do shift spacebar again and type mask, and we're going to get this mask paint node and click add. The mask paint node basically masks the background. At the minute you won't see anything because I haven't done anything, so select your mask paint node. At the minute it's in this viewer, go to polyline, and I'm going to again zoom in to start off with, so control and scroll the middle mouse button. And what I want is this midpoint, so I get it in exactly the right place. So put your first point in, like so. Control and scroll out so you can see what you're doing. And now if you hold the shift key, it constrains your lines to 45-degree increments. So hold your shift key, come up a little bit, click, keep your shift key held, and click. And now we have our line. Come into your background, set your line to whatever colour you want it. Let's go with red for now. Come back to your mask paint, go to brush controls, solid brush, and drop the width of your line, like so. Now we can merge the output of our dot over the output of our background, and we get this. So the dot's in front of your line. Now what I did was I tied the colour of the line to the colour of the dot. You don't have to do that, you can have them working independently, so you could have one colour for your square, one colour for your line on your square, and one colour for your line itself. Personal choice. If you want to tie them together the way I did it, select your background, right click on each colour in turn and click publish. And now come into your shape rectangles, go to style, and then connect. So right click on each colour, connect to background, and then the appropriate colour. And now this rectangle will be the same colour as your background. We'll do the same with the other rectangle, like so. So now if you wanted to make this into a macro or something, all you need to worry about is your background colour, and you can change that to whatever you want, and your square and your square outline will change with it. So that's element 2, and the final element is your text, and you just bring in text node, put on whatever text you want, and you take the output of your masked paint path and drop it on the output of your text. And then when we view this, we've got what we want. So you can select your text node and you can drag it to wherever you need it, like so. And that's your basic call out. That's it done. All you need to do now is animate it, and again you can animate it to your own preference. So I'm going to come to frame 0, I'm going to come to my shape rectangle 1, which is this square, and I'm going to add a keyframe to width, and I'm going to come forward 6 frames, add another keyframe, go back to frame 0 and drop your width to 0. Now I'm going to do the same with the second rectangle. I'm going to be at frame 0, I'm going to click on controls, I'm going to keyframe width, I'm going to come to frame 12 this time, add another keyframe, go back to frame 0 and drop that width to 0. So now you get this kind of effect as your dot appears. Now what I'm going to do, if you come to your spline button at the top right here, open it, and you can add curves to your animation. And for this all we want selected is width, so deselect all the rest. And now we've just got our width. If we now click on this button that says zoom to fit, this is the linear path of our square growing. If we select both, hit S on the keyboard, you get a curve. What I'm also going to do is exaggerate that curve by dragging this all the way over. I'm going to do the same to rectangle 2. So again, all we need is the width. Hit zoom to fit. Select both. S on your keyboard, and then just pull out this handle like so. So now our square grows in a bit more natural fashion. Excellent. Close your spline window. Come to frame 12 and select your mask paint tool. Now, if you come to stroke controls, you've got this right on feature. Add a keyframe at frame 12 and drop the right hand dot all the way back to 0. Come to frame 24 and write it on. And again, I'm going to go to my spline editor. All we changed was the end point, so that's all we need to worry about, so we can get rid of start. Again, zoom to fit. Same procedure, select both, S on your keyboard, and if we put our playhead back here, we can then drag this handle to our playhead. So now we've got in and align. So at frame 24, we're now going to do our text, and the way we're going to do our text is we're going to add a rectangle to our text that will allow us to mask it. So come to your hotbar again, grab the rectangle and pipe that into the blue input of your text. Now we can position this rectangle so that it's over our text and shrink it down. What I'm going to do is actually make it the same length as the line, not the text. That way it gives a bit of chance to change the text if you need to. So on frame 24, our line's grown, so now we need to bring our text in. So we will need at frame 24 our text to be where we want it to start. So if we select text, come to the layout tab and add a keyframe to center. If you come forward to frame 36 and add another keyframe. The reason I've done it this way is frame 36 is where I want my text and this is where I want it to be. So rather than moving it at frame 24 and then trying to get it back to this position, it's easier to keyframe while it's in its last place and then make the adjustment at frame 24. And at frame 24 we're just going to drag so that it's off the screen. And frame 36 will bring it in. Now we've got our text on, we need everything to hold for a while and then start to get everything off. So I'm going to, still on text, I'm going to come to frame 50, frame 60, which will be a second. I'm going to keyframe center again. I'm going to come to frame 72 and I'm going to drag my text off the other way, like so. So now we need to reverse all this. So at frame 72, I'm going to come to my mask paint. I'm going to keyframe right on. I'm going to come forward to frame 84 and write off. And then I'm going to write off both my squares. So rectangle 1 at frame 84, keyframe width. At frame 95, drop the height or the width to 0, and I'm going to do the same with my other one. So frame 84, keyframe and drop, like so. Now we need to add easing on all these animations that we've just done. So text first, come to your spline editor. We've only got the displacement, so zoom to fit. Now you see we've got 2 steps, so we need to do each step separately. So select the first 2, hit S, and we will come back to frame 24, and we're going to grab this handle and bring it to our playhead, and then we're going to do the same, the easing off. So select the last 2, hit S, put your playhead and bring it in, like so. And now we're going to ease our rectangle 1. So again, all we need is width, zoom to fit. Now you see we've already done this side, so we just need to do the other side. So S on your keyboard. I'm not going to do the stretching out for the disappearing. And then do the same for rectangle 2, width, zoom to fit. Select your last 2 and hit S. And then you can close your spline window and play it through. And that's your animation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more node, which is called a keyframe stretcher. And what that's going to do is that's basically going to freeze this portion of your animation. So between frame 37 and 59. So select your last merge, shift spacebar, keyframe stretcher, and add. Now you need to set this up so that it works. So select your keyframe stretcher, go to the last frame of your comp. You see that it's frame 95. Come up to your inspector. Source start is 0, source end will be 95. And then we need to work out which frames to stretch, and we want between frame 37 and 59. So that's, your text has come in, you're going to hold everything until the text goes out again. So back to your keyframe stretcher, stretch start 37, stretch end 59. So now everything in between will slow down if you increase the length of your Fusion comp. That becomes important in the next stage. So you can now connect that to your media out and play it through. The only other thing that I did, and again it's a choice thing on your text, you can come to settings and check motion blur. Depending on how powerful your computer is, this will slow things down. And depending on how high the quality is, will also slow it down further. Again, it's a choice thing, like so. Okay, so back to the edit tab. We now have our call out. So how do we use it? Well, there's a couple of ways you can use it. You can save that out as a settings file and just drop it onto a clip. You can bring this, since 17.3 you can name Fusion comps, which is quite handy. So if you come to file in the inspector, you can name it like that, so it gives it a little name. The downside of this, for some reason, if you drag that into the media pool, it doesn't name it there, so you have to do it again manually. Anyway, so we now have this Fusion comp up here in our media pool, so we can use it as often as we want. So how would we use it? We will get rid of that. You bring in your footage that you want your call out on. and work out where you want your call out to appear. So if I've got this footage like so, if I want the call out to appear, say, there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that. I'm going to come forward to how long I want the call out to last for, and I'm going to make another cut. Now this clip here will be where the call out happens, and then I'm going to come to my media pool, drag my fusion comp back in, and what we should get is this. Not a lot of use, but remember the keyframe stretcher will let us stretch this now to whatever length we want, and it still works, and it will eventually go off at the end like so. But I want my call out to stay with my digger thing, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to select both clips, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to make a new fusion clip. So if we now take this clip into Fusion, you see we've got two medias and a merge node. Media 1 is your footage, media 2 is your call out. So what we need to do is track this call out to wherever we want it to appear on the screen. So I'm going to get rid of this merge node for now. This is our call out, so I'm going to rename it. F2 to rename a node. And we will start off by tracking this footage. So I'm going to bring it in. So select media 1, shift spacebar, tracker. And I'm going to track this little white dot in the cab here. I'm going to bring my tracker so that I can see that. I'm going to zoom in so that I can see what I'm doing. Let's see how that tracks. Tracking is a bit of a hit and miss thing, but we'll give it a go. So track back. Seems to be holding that quite well. And then come and track forward. Cool. So we seem to have quite a nice track on our cab. Now all we need to do is come to our call out, drop it onto the green node on the tracker, select tracker, come to operation, change it to match move. And all things being equal, our tracker is now following our digger. What we find there is that we have odd glitchy keyframes, so we work out which keyframe glitched then. There, so that keyframe. So what you can do, if you open your keyframe editor and select zoom to fit, again pressing the control key and scrolling your middle mouse button, you can zoom in to your keyframes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this keyframe here, which is the offending keyframe. I'm going to drag and select it, which should now have turned it yellow, and I'm going to hit delete, and I'm going to delete that keyframe. So now I think other than that one keyframe, everything seemed to run quite smoothly. There's a little jitter there, but nothing I'm overly worried about. So now we have our call out following our truck. All we need to do is position it. Now you can position it using the offset controls in the tracker. What I prefer to do is to add in a transform node. So the transform after you call out and before you tracker, and actually use the transform to position, because you can also resize it if you need to. So bring our call out over your cab. And now when we play our call out, we'll track our cab. And that, as they say, is all there is to it. What you can also do with your transform if you want is you can resize this a bit. So now if you come back to your edit tab, you can play. Once it's cached, you can hit play and let this play through. So I hope that makes sense. I hope it was helpful, and please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.